Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang unveiled two new AI chips on Tuesday, Blackwell Ultra shipping this year and Vera Rubin GPUs coming in 2026. In another major development, General Motors announced a strategic partnership with Nvidia to expand AI across vehicle, hardware and plant operations. GM already uses Nvidia's graphic processing units for AI model training, aligning with Huang's emphasis on the firm's push into robotics.
The next wave is already happening. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Robotics, which has been enabled by physical AI. AI that understands the physical world. It understands things like friction and inertia.
Interestingly, Huang also said Nvidia will use Chinese firm DeepSeek's AI model to benchmark several of its new products. One of the most anticipated events from one of the world's hottest companies has gotten underway. It's called the GTC conference, run by chipmaker Nvidia. For more now on Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's keynote speech, I'm joined by Carmi Levy, who is a technology analyst and journalist. Carmi, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us this evening. What are some of the biggest takeaways from Nvidia's keynote speech this year?
I think what we heard from Jensen Huang is that clearly the AI industry is at a significant inflection point. I think we've ended the first era where the initial wave of AI-based tools have come to market. They've largely been trained. The template for how these tools go to market has largely been established, and now we're moving beyond that. AI is pushing further into the mainstream. The curve in terms of compute requirements for AI is driving demand for ever more powerful chips, ever more powerful data centers. And I think what we saw at the conference today in the keynote is a vision of what that's going to look like and how Nvidia is positioned to capture that. This is a company that's grown some 2,000% over the past 5 years, and then largely stalled out at the end of last year over concerns that it was stumbling with new product releases and that the arrival of DeepSeek R1 had changed the rules somewhat. So really what this is okay, what does AI 2.0 look like and how is Nvidia going to power that? We got a glimpse of that vision today, and it'll sort of be interesting to see if the company can ultimately deliver on that vision. But at least as far as roadmaps go, this was a pretty comprehensive one.
So what do you think this vision that Nvidia's presented, might do in terms of the impact on the tech industry, especially in regards to AI and gaming?
Well, Nvidia is a significant bellwether company. They're currently the second largest company in the world, not just tech company, but also where Nvidia goes, everyone else tends to follow in terms of trying to understand where AI is headed. And so up until now, Nvidia's main game, sort of the key driver of its growth, has been GPUs on the desktop as well as in the data center. But what we heard in the keynote today was that can only go so far. They have to identify more markets. So automotive, autonomous technologies, quantum computing, robotics, manufacturing, not just powering the data center, but designing it so that it's optimal and it delivers the power as promised. So it's what those markets look like. And I think Nvidia is trying to position itself as kind of the architect of that future economy that will open up new markets to drive the next generation of growth, the next chapter of growth.
Despite all of this, though, Nvidia's stocks went down on Tuesday. Are you surprised by this, given it's the main player in the game?
Not at all. I think investors are still waiting for that wow moment. We have seen, for example, the company had some significant troubles late last year with its latest generation of GPUs. And so they can promise technology, but can they execute on it? And they certainly executed below their typical levels of customer satisfaction. There were a lot of bugs, there were a lot of software updates, and I think the company was shown to be fallible. And so investors are looking at that saying, maybe the rocket ride is over. Maybe that sort of 5 years of unmitigated growth is coming to an end, and we kind of have to see another story from them. So I think they're waiting and seeing here because up until now, these are just announcements. This is just a roadmap so that developers know where Nvidia is headed, so that Nvidia can lock in developers to create create those applications that it described today. Of course, the question then remains, are they able to operate at that level? Are they able to continue to fuel growth at the rates that we've seen before? And I don't really think we saw that to 100% confidence today. I think we might have seen it to 60 or 70% confidence, but as far as investors are concerned, that isn't enough for them to stay in for the ride. They're going to wait and see.
And Jensen Huang had some fairly positive things to say about China's DeepSeek as well. Can you tell us about those comments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we need to recognize the level of innovation that DeepSeek brought to the industry and how it changed the very narrative around AI. Up until DeepSeek was revealed to the public, the assumption really was that you needed huge data centers with massive compute capability to deliver a certain level of performance. And DeepSeek did that on much less capable hardware. It also did it without a significant investment or the same degree of investment in training. So in terms of dollar amounts, $6 million to create this platform versus billions for competing platforms. So it literally changed the math. And I found it interesting to see Nvidia recognize that not as a competitive factor, but really as a tide that raises every participant in the market. That it's positive for everyone because it drives innovation in competitors. It forces them to figure out how can we create these powerful AI-driven applications on hardware that may not necessarily be current or next generation. And I think it's opened up a very important new conversation in AI development, and it's refreshing to see Nvidia recognize that.
And China's Baidu has also just announced a new chatbot, so there's growing competition in that sector. What do you think Nvidia needs to do in order to maintain its lead?
They need to execute because that's where they have fallen short over the last number of months. I think after years of the level of growth that we've seen, double-digit growth in most cases, I just think they've outscaled themselves. And certainly as other companies jump into the AI market, as other GPU makers like AMD and Intel and Qualcomm and Broadcom firm up their roadmaps and become more mature, more capable competitors, I think it puts additional pressure on Nvidia, which up until now has largely seen itself as in a competitive market of one. That is no longer the case. It's no longer Nvidia on top with everyone else as an also-ran. You've got competitors that are gunning for the lead in the industry, and they're showing up ready for battle. And certainly, with Baidu introducing a new chatbot, it shows that the applications that are going to run on that hardware are also going to continue to drive new demand for those next generation products. And Nvidia needs to be ready. It's not going to get a second chance because if it fails to execute on this, essentially its competitors are going to leapfrog them in the next couple of years.
All right, Carmi Levy, we'll leave it there. Really appreciate your time.
Great being with you, Sally. Thanks for having me.